I was smiling when the door opened. Candles were still burning. The room was full of applause. Happy birthday was still echoing. And then my husband walked in. With another family. A woman holding his hand. 2 grown children standing behind him. And that's when I realized. This birthday wasn't a celebration. It was a confession. My name is Evelyn Carter. For 30 years, I believed I was married to a loyal man. 30 birthdays. 30 anniversaries. 30 years of believing in a life that felt safe. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio. White fences. Friendly smiles. A life that looked perfect from the outside. My husband, Richard, was respected. A calm man. A provider. A man who never raised his voice. Or so I thought. That night, I turned 58. The house was decorated with golden balloons. Friends and family filled the living room. Laughter everywhere. Richard was late. Then the door opened. And everything stopped. No one clapped. No one spoke. Because Richard wasn't alone. Beside him stood a woman, early 50s, her face pale but proud. Behind her were a son and a daughter. Adults. They looked familiar. Not because I knew them. But because I had seen their faces before. In Richard's eyes. Richard cleared his throat. "Evelyn," he said. "There's something you deserve to know." My heart didn't race. It sank. Because deep down. I already knew this wasn't good. "I had another family," he said. "For 30 years. The room gasped. My friend stared at me. Waiting for tears. Waiting for screams. But I didn't move. I smiled. Because Richard didn't know something. Something I had known. Long before this birthday. I walked toward him slowly. Picked up a small gift box from the table. Wrapped neatly. Golden ribbon. "I have something for you too," I said calmly. His hands shook as he took it. He smiled. He thought this was forgiveness. But forgiveness wasn't inside that box. Truth was. And it was about to destroy everything he thought he controlled. Richard began to open the box. The other woman leaned closer. The room held its breath. And I whispered. "You should have opened this, 30 years ago." Richard untied the ribbon slowly. Too slowly. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. The other woman, Mary Ann, stood rigid, her jaw tight. The 2 children avoided my eyes. Richard opened the box. And his smile disappeared. Inside were 3 things. A stack of old letters, yellowed with age. A faded photograph of a younger Richard, holding a baby. And a legal document, folded neatly at the bottom. His hands began to tremble. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. I met his eyes. "From the place you thought I'd never look," I said. His face went pale. Because he knew exactly what that meant. The truth is. I discovered his secret 3 years into our marriage. Not through suspicion. Through accident. A hospital bill. A name I didn't recognize. A child listed as dependent. I didn't confront him. I watched. Every late night. Every business trip. Every quiet lie. I told myself love meant patience. But patience turned into silence. And silence became survival. People think women stay because they're weak. They're wrong. I stayed because I needed proof. Not for revenge. For truth. Richard unfolded the paper. It was a trust deed. Signed. Dated 25 years ago. Transferred quietly. To me. "What is this?" he demanded. "It's the house," I said softly. "And the accounts. And the company shares." I paused. "All of it." Gasps filled the room. Marianne stepped back. The children stared at their father. You transferred everything, I continued. Because you were afraid. Afraid your secret would come out. His mouth opened. No words came. This is the moment people don't talk about. The moment when silence stops being weakness. And becomes strategy. Marianne whispered, you promised us security. Richard turned to her. But he couldn't look at her for long. Because for the first time, he had nothing left to promise. Richard looked at me, desperate. You planned this, he said. I smiled again. No, I replied. I survived it. No one moved. Not my friends. Not Richard's children. Not even Marianne. Because betrayal doesn't explode right away. It settles. Like dust after a collapse. Marianne stepped forward. Her voice wasn't angry. It was tired. You told me she knew, Marianne said to Richard. You said this arrangement was, understood. I laughed softly. A hollow sound. Understood? I repeated. I understood I was being lied to. Marianne wasn't my enemy. She was another woman who trusted the same man. Another woman who believed patience would be rewarded. We weren't rivals. We were evidence. The son, Daniel, finally spoke. You came to my graduation, he said to Richard. But you left early. Richard nodded slowly. I told her I had a conference, Daniel continued. I swallowed. Because I remembered that night. Richard came home late. Smelled like champagne. Said nothing. That's when it hit everyone. Birthdays missed. Holidays divided. Love rationed like currency. Richard didn't live 2 lives. He lived half of 4. I turned to the room. To everyone watching, I said calmly. This isn't revenge. I held up the trust deed. This is consequence. Richard dropped to the couch. Not dramatically. Like a man whose spine finally gave up. I was trying to keep everyone happy, he whispered. No, I replied. You were trying to avoid being honest. Love doesn't break families. Lies do. And lies don't just hurt the people you deceive. They rot the person you become. The candles were still lit. Wax dripping. Time passing. I walked over and blew them out. One breath. 30 years gone. I turned back to Richard. I'm not here to punish you, I said. I'm here to finish something. He looked up. Finish what? I picked up my coat. My silence. The room followed me as I walked. Not with footsteps. With eyes. Every breath felt heavy, like the air itself knew something was ending. I stopped near the doorway. Then I turned back. For 30 years, I said. I protected your secret. Richard looked up sharply. I protected it when you didn't come home. When your phone was off. When you looked at me like I was asking for too much. My voice stayed calm. That scared him more than shouting ever could. I didn't stay because I was blind, I continued. I stayed because I wanted to know who you really were. Before deciding who I would become. Richard's eyes filled with tears. Evelyn, he whispered. I loved you. I nodded. I know, I said. And that's what makes this tragic. I reached into my purse. Pulled out another box. Smaller. Unwrapped. I didn't give you everything yet, I said. He froze. Inside was a single envelope. Divorce papers. Already signed. Already filed. Effective at midnight. Gasps filled the room again. This isn't anger, I said softly. This is self-respect. I turned to Marianne. You deserve a man who doesn't split his soul, I said. And so did I. She nodded, tears falling freely now. Richard reached for me. Missed. I can fix this, he said desperately. No, I replied. You can't fix 30 years by telling the truth for one night. This was my birthday, I said. The day I was supposed to celebrate another year of life. I smiled faintly. And instead, I reclaimed it. I opened the door. Cold night air rushed in. Behind me, I heard Richard sob for the first time in our marriage. Not because he lost me. Because he finally saw himself. Weeks later, the house was quiet. No lies. No secrets. Just space. I sold the place. Moved closer to the ocean. Bought myself a small cake. Lit one candle. Here's what 30 years taught me. Love without honesty is just endurance. And endurance is not the same as living. On my birthday, my husband brought me his hidden family. I smiled. Because that was the day I finally chose myself.